How do you respond to your pain? How do you respond
Mhm.
to, how do you let go of any suffering? How do you forgive? How do you leave things in the past, right? Yesterday, there's nothing we can do about yesterday.
Yeah, and you talk about that in the book, and really, I look at it almost as a blueprint. Today's guest carries a legacy that is woven into the history and heart of Washington, D.C. Ben Kamal Ali is the owner and operator of Ben's Chili Bowl, the iconic institution founded by his parents, a place that has nourished generations, welcomed world leaders, and stood as a symbol of community resilience and Black excellence. But today, our conversation reaches beyond the restaurant. In his book, Ascend, Ben offers Black American men a blueprint for healing, purpose, leadership, financial freedom, and spiritual growth. It's an invitation to move beyond simply surviving to become whole, intentional, and equipped to build a lasting legacy. We're talking about the lessons Ben inherited from his parents, the weight and privilege of carrying a family legacy, and what it truly means for a man to rise. So, Ben, welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast.
Hey, thank you, Carol, for having me.
My pleasure. And so I know we're going to move beyond the restaurant, but I want to start with it for just a second. I mean, I'm a Washington, D.C. native. I'm very familiar with Ben's Chili Bowl. My stepfather met your father when he was a young man. And so it holds a special place in my heart. So I wonder, as I said, it's a revered gathering place that has welcomed the brightest stars and intellectuals in our history. What was it like just growing up inside that legacy? How did it shape your understanding? And as a child, like I know you mentioned, you had an anecdote when you were 5 years old in the book. I'm just wondering, as a child, how did you view the restaurant? What did you think about it?
Yeah, well, it was always a special place. Mom and dad, magically to go down there and for me to hear the sounds of that jukebox and see all the people, the vibrancy of the neighborhood and the corridor with all African American people. This was Washington was Chocolate City, and the Chili Bowl, in that U Street corridor is the centerpiece for arts, history, and culture in Washington, D.C., which is, pretty much in our whole country. So we really
Mhm.
enjoyed that legacy of that area. Now, when I came up there, I was born in 1962. The Chili Bowl started in 1958, and the glory years of the Chili Bowl were really 1958 to 1968. And so after those Martin Luther King riots of 1968, the area went under a bad spell of drugs, and the people left due to integration, right? The richer people left the area
Sure.
for integration. And so when I came up there, it was not that glory. I don't recall those glory days per se. I had it in a little different era. So in my era, what I really remember was those black exploitation films that were playing right next door at the Lincoln Theater, and then the other theaters in the area. We had Shaft and Superfly and Pam Grier, Sheba Baby, and Buck and the Preacher. And I remember, a kind of different experience than it was probably the 10 years before.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I didn't think about that. I mean, we're about the same age, um, but I hadn't thought about how that might appear to you, especially being right there, because I didn't live near Ben's Chili Bowl, but I was certainly familiar with it. And
Yeah,
so,
and you had the underground economy that people don't talk about, right? The underground
talk
economy
about that.
meaning the hustlers. You had the numbers, which was turned into the lottery, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You had things like that were going on. Of course, selling marijuana or selling those types of things versus today, marijuana is legalized, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
it was a very different time back then with the music and with the arts and history and culture of that era. But
Right.
those street guys who populated that U Street area and kept the economy going in a lot of ways. Because don't forget, now you had black dollars circulating amongst the black community.
Right, right. And so I wonder what changed, what inside Ben's Chili Bowl in terms of and how your parents operated when so much had changed outside after 1968. What
Yeah.
was that like?
Well, to my understanding, they went more to a carry-out model than an eat-in
Okay.
model. They shut down one of the dining rooms. They had more carry-out during that time when there was a rough area. But other than that, pretty much things pretty much stayed the same. And we had a group of regulars, a group of local Washingtonians who were loyal to the Chili Bowl, and that was their hangout. So they weren't going to let anything happen to the Chili Bowl. So
Makes
mom
sense.
always felt protected because you could rob the place next door or down the block, but the Chili Bowl was kind of sacred ground. And so, despite the woes that we had with the drugs and whatnot, we were always protected. But it was hard to see, for instance, the kids. When you see
Hmm.
how many kids were affected. So this mentorship type of movement I'm trying to create was really mom and dad showing me by example, taking care of whether it's feeding the kids, whether it's doing homework with them at the desk, at the counter, giving $5 for every A on the report card. All those types of things were mom and dad's living example of
Hmm.
community and mentorship, including the staff. Think of all the staff
Hmm.
and the team members we had over the years working at Howard University or University of District of Columbia, coming from all over the world and working their way through college at the Chili Bowl. And they would come back
Hmm.
years later and really thank my parents for all they did for them. You talk about this time of immigration and ICE
Right.
and whatnot in the streets. You know how many green cards mom and dad helped people to
Oh,
get
wow.
to go from being a student to a full-time resident here. So lots and lots of lessons were learned over those years.
Yeah, and you talk about that in the book, and really, I look at it almost as a blueprint. It really is. I mean, the way you've laid it out, and it comes sort of from your parents. So, talk about what you felt as a child, hearing lessons from your parents in terms of what you thought it was going to look like for you growing up and upholding your family legacy.
Yeah, well, mom and dad stressed education. They stressed entrepreneurship. Dad, of course, is from Trinidad, and we had a family business. So dad was really big on entrepreneurship. And I tell a lot of people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, I say, how entrepreneurship happens oftentimes in our community is we couldn't get the job. When you couldn't get the job, where weren't the opportunities, you had to go out there and another word for entrepreneurship, by the way, is hustle. Right?
Sure.
You have to go out there and feed your family by hook or by
Hmm.
crook. So you started a business, a small business. That's all it is. It wasn't anything,
Hmm.
grandiose or this huge plan. It was, what can you do to feed your
Hmm.
family? And if you have good morals and values, you're trying to do it in a positive way, not a negative way. That's all the entrepreneurship was for him. And so he got into business. And I don't think he ever thought, he or mom in their wildest dreams, ever thought this Chili Bowl would last these 67 plus years. I think they
Wow.
thought of it as a way to feed their family and take care of everything for a period of time. And so when I started out, let's say we were open in '68. Well, by the
Hmm.
time I came into the business, and we started in '58. By the time I came into the business in the early '80s, it'd been around
Hmm.
20, 22 years. But
Hmm.
it was really after that we became iconic, that we became that legacy business. I can actually
Hmm.
point to like 1986. 1986, The Cosby Show I think it was 85 or 86. The Cosby Show was the number one rated show in the entire country.
Hmm. I
And,
remember it
and
well.
he was under some scrutiny at the time, saying, "Oh, you know what? That's not a typical black family. You have a black doctor as a husband, a black lawyer as a wife. They're living in this beautiful home with grandparents, etc. This is not the typical black family." And Bill Cosby came down to Ben's Chili Bowl to host a
Hmm.
national press conference and say, "Look at us here at Ben's. Look at all the people who are here. All these African American people. They're beautiful, but they're also different. They're blue collar, they're white collar, they're doctors and lawyers, but they're also carpenters and plumbers and trashmen. And we,
Hmm.
and, don't sell us short and don't pigeonhole us in any one thing. We are,
Hmm.
we are America, right?" And so it was
That's
a really
right.
great, great national press conference, and that kind of put the Chili Bowl on the national map as much
Hmm.
as anything
Hmm.
else.
Right, right. I remember that too. Now, shifting to the book, Ascend, you talk about how in our community, many men are taught how to survive, but maybe they don't learn how to heal and thrive. So talk about a bit about that, the pain that maybe you or other Black men that you know have had to carry silently, and what helps to recognize that surviving is no longer enough?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back just a little bit first and say how, my dad is really the one who put me on to these principles through a course he took called Success Motivation Institute back in the
Hmm.
70s. And he came back and drilled principles into us through spaced repetition. He played these little cassette tapes over and
Okay.
over and over, and you had to listen to each lesson 9 times before you
Okay.
internalized it and were able to then repeat it and teach it. And so that was that. I would also point back to the time where we just talked about to those early years from that 58 to 68 type of a time period when,
Hmm.
even though during the civil rights movement, the families were very together. So you had the
Yes.
foundation of family, and of course, I'm sure on your parenting podcast, that's what we're talking about, right? The foundation of family and the
Sure.
foundation of the church, right? And then we went into those years where drugs were entered into the community, as we talked about after those 68 riots, and then integration, which, though well-meaning, right? I mean, we all wanted to be integrated, but it also took away from the unity of the group. It took away from those
Yes.
dollars being spent in the community. So you had a couple of things here that led to some of this brokenness: the breakup of the
Hmm.
family, the entering of drugs, and then
Hmm.
mass incarcerations, right, and
Yes.
policy. So though we've always been targeted for certain things, whether it has to do with housing or voting redistricting or these types of things, now you're even further breaking up the family, right? Breaking up
Hmm.
those institutions. So this has led to this brokenness. This has led to this
Hmm.
despair. And so what I'm my book is really about raising awareness, right?
Hmm.
About yourself and about your situation, and mostly yourself, because circumstances
Yes.
are always going to change and be there, and we'll always have struggles and challenges. It's really realizing that you have the power to control your thinking and to
Hmm.
control and to control
Mindset matters.
your perception, right? And how you approach things, how you see yourself, most importantly, how you see yourself, how you speak to yourself, and how you see yourself, your vision for your life. That these aren't things
Hmm.
that are normally taught to us, right? We're just taught to
Hmm.
survive.
Hmm.
These struggles have put us in a rat race, a commercialism rat race, where we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and just trying to pay the rent and survive, despite the brokenness and the challenges, instead of taking a step back and realizing, that, what God has given us in
Hmm.
ourselves, right? The power of what God has given you, really taking inventory of your mind, your body, your spirit, the miracle that we all are, and being able to maximize your gifts and talents for your
Hmm.
own betterment, for the betterment of your family, your community, and the world.
Yes, yes, and I'm glad you bring that up, Faith, because that was an area that I wanted to get into next. So, in the Ascend, you do describe surrendering pain to God as like an act of freedom rather than a weakness, right? And so, what describe the moment when your faith may have been tested deeply enough that you had to decide whether you truly believed what you had been taught and choosing the path forward for yourself.
Yeah. I think that all people have their struggles, right? It doesn't really matter if you're rich or poor, because that
Hmm.
struggle is relative, right? Whether
Right.
you have extreme circumstances of poverty and lack of education, or certain things, or whether you are a millionaire, and
Hmm.
you doesn't being a millionaire doesn't make your marriage any better, doesn't necessarily make your self-esteem any better. These things go back deep. These things go back to childhood, go back to, your view of the world, your view of your spirituality. So no matter what struggles you have, for me, sure, I've had plenty of struggles in my life, as have we all. I mean, I had a
Hmm.
situation where I was not able to finish school, and I was at Wharton School of Finance, and I had a very bad eye problem, and I wasn't able to finish school, and I carried that with me for some years
Hmm.
of, maybe, I'm not good enough to this or to that, right? Um,
Hmm.
I had in my marriage, we had some miscarriages, and was had a hard time having children. So there's always pain. There's always something. How do you respond to your pain?
Hmm.
How do you let go of any suffering? How do you forgive? How do you leave things in the past, right? Yesterday, there's nothing we can do about yesterday, good, bad, or
Right.
indifferent. None of us can change yesterday, but we can release it. We can say, you know
Yes.
what, that happened. It was good. It was bad. It was sideways. why am I carrying it forward with me in a negative way? Why am I carrying baggage with me into the future, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to realize this from a time perspective. There's nothing we can do about yesterday, and we're not promised tomorrow. All we
Mm-hmm.
have is today. All we have
Right.
really is today. So that living in the present moment, of living your
Mm-hmm.
best life today, enjoying today, being grateful
Mm-hmm.
today, right? Giving to
Mm-hmm.
people and serving the community today is and doing that every day leads to a great life,
Right,
right?
right. And I like what you said about how suffering or challenges are relative. It doesn't matter where you are on the socioeconomic spectrum. We all have our challenges, and it kind of makes me think of two things. I remember when I was younger and my mother told me to not envy people because you never know what what price they paid or what challenges they had. So just be thankful and focused on what I have and what I can do, what I have the capacity to do for myself. And then another thing that I remember a few years ago when my sons were applying to college, and there was this competitive academic scholarship that would be a full ride for a particular school that he really wanted. It was his number one school, I'll say. And so, but people all around were familiar. A lot of people want to go to this school, and they're familiar with this scholarship that he was invited to apply for. And they were like, oh, but he's not going to get it. He doesn't fit the profile. He's not. And I said, look, praise God. He's never had to worry about where he was going to sleep. He's never had to worry about whether he was going to have food on the table. But he has a story too that a lot of people, a lot of people don't know. Everybody has a story. And
Right.
so that's what I encouraged him to write about. And he submitted that essay and did well in the interview, presented it well in the interview and on campus and all of that, and he got the scholarship. I mean, because I appreciate that they looked beyond the usual societal ideas about what hardship is and recognized what he had overcome to get where he was at that point. So I think that a point about pain or suffering being relative is very important for all of us to remember. And then it gets into something else that you talk about, and that's where you encourage men to take responsibility for their healing without denying the trauma, violence, anything, limited opportunity, anything, racism that they may be experiencing. But how do you think a man should claim his agency without blaming himself for the wounds that he didn't create? How does he go about
That's
doing that?
Well, it's not whether or not you blame yourself or not. It's about releasing. It's about that healing. Because yeah, maybe you did cause yourself some pain and suffering, or others,
That's true.
right? We're
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
perfect, so it's not. So the point is to release it. So if you say, hey, you know what? We all have this trauma. We all have this anxiety or pain or suffering, as we call it. Based on our perspectives, it's how do we heal from that? Because I say I can't put you on the basketball court with a broken leg, right?
Right.
You have to heal first. And in the same way that we have to heal first to be our best versions of ourselves, we need to let go of the past, right? And be open because that past is making you hang on to those. When you're hanging on to negativity, you're hanging on to fear, you're hanging on to regret, you're hanging on to doubt, you're hanging on to worry and anxiety. I said it's only holding you back from opportunity. It's only holding you back from being the best version of yourself. But no one teaches you how to heal, right? If you
Hmm.
said, well, sure, that sounds great. I'd love to forget everything negative ever happened in my life. But how do you do that? No, I've never seen a course for that, right? They say, well, go to the psychiatrist, which of course,
And
in our community particularly, we're not, people are not apt to do. So I teach some very simple techniques to try. I said, the first thing is realizing, when you, just like an alcoholic or a drug addict, the first step is raise your hand, right? Recognize it, right? That's the
hmm.
first step.
Hmm.
If you don't understand that you have pain or suffering or worry or doubt, if you don't understand it, then how are you going to let go of it? So the first thing is to acknowledge it because we've buried
Yes.
so much of it. We've buried so much of it deep inside us. We're taught all the
Hmm.
wrong things. We're taught don't tell your business, right?
Yes.
Or men or black men don't cry and hold it, keep things within. be strong and like these types of things, as opposed to what happens when you hold things inside? What happens when things fester, right? When things accumulate and become too much, what's going to happen? You're going to explode,
That's
right?
right.
It's going to come out in anger. It's going to come out in self-medication. It's going to come out in negative ways. So we're taught the wrong thing, right? So this is about how to heal. And so I throw out some ideas for healing. I'm not a licensed therapist. Everyone has to find their
Right.
own way. But I say, listen, just the intentionality. I said, you don't recognize how powerful your words are, right?
Yes.
Words have real power. And
Mm-hmm.
the self-talk that you use, even internally
Mm-hmm.
without externally speaking them, but also in externally speaking them, your words have real power. So I use certain affirmations for different things, right? To reinforce things and for healing, for everything else. So I have an affirmation in the book that says, I acknowledge my fears. I acknowledge the past hurts. I acknowledge my pain. I acknowledge all the bad things that people have done to me and all the bad things that I may have done to others or to myself, right? I release them. I let them go. I don't want to carry them anymore. I give them back to God. I don't want to carry them into the future. I release them here and now. I release them here and now. I give them back to God. This type of just spoken speaking out, acknowledging and speaking them away from yourself. Give
Right.
them
And
back to
I think
God. Give them back. I said, it's not gonna do it in one time, but the repeated action. Again, when I speak about repetition, right? We all learn from repetition, and just like you brush your teeth every day, it's maintenance, right? You brush your teeth every day. You make your bed
absolutely.
every day. You try to get a little workout in every day. How do you keep your mind clean and pure? How do you keep your thoughts clean and pure? How do you keep yourself? It's everyday practices. The book is teaching
Mm-hmm.
everyday practices, small couple of minute things that you turn into habits, right? And healing is one of
Right.
them. Another technique besides speaking them out loud. I thought one day as I was showering, I thought about the principle of baptism. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? I said, every day now when I take a shower, it's like it's the baptism for me. I was like, I'm washing away yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm washing away remember
Right.
that lady who cut me off when I was driving, the person who wrote me the ticket yesterday. Any
Yes.
negativity, why am I carrying it into today? And I use it as a
Mm-hmm.
baptism type of ritual to say, I'm starting again. Today's a new day. I have a new start today. I mean, this is the gratitude of waking up for a new day that God has given us. So these are
Yes.
simple, these are simple practices. Another is writing down, actually bringing up some of those old hurts and pains. Write them down. Think about
Right.
it. Spend time writing them down, and then not to show anybody. You write them down, and at the end of it, you may light it on fire and put it in a metal trash can. You may tear it up, but you are physically bringing it up and releasing, and you're doing it with
Right.
a
And
mentality that's going to that in time and repetition, you're going to feel better. You're going to start those things are going
yeah.
to let go.
And what I like about what you're saying is that you're not ignoring or pretending like these challenges didn't happen, but it's really about taking the lesson from it, right? But then not dwelling on it, taking what you need and moving away from it. And I think a lot of people can. That's good advice for people to just push forward and push past those challenges because um, I always think about how God uses everything. Like he does have a certain purpose that he placed inside of all of us. And man, it would be great if we just walked that path perfectly. He knows we won't, and he already knows what we're going to do. But when we veer off the path, but he uses that too. He uses that detour you made and finds a way to bring you back on the path. So even he uses what happened, but doesn't beat you over the head up with it for the rest of your life. He puts you on the path to doing what he
And
planned for you and living the life he
what
envisioned for you.
and what lesson did we learn? When you say we learned the
Yeah.
lesson, this again gets back to that perception because there's a person out there, and we're just making up scenarios, right? Somebody got
Yes.
married and had a bad
Mhm.
marriage experience and got divorced and said, well, my lesson was never to be married. Well, that's not the lesson, right?
Right.
Maybe you married the wrong person for you. I said,
Exactly.
but
There's
if
something
you
there.
but if
You
you
got to
take that
examine
take
it.
if you hold on to that negativity and use the lesson of I'm never going to get married again, maybe you're going to miss out on, your soulmate or the person who's meant for you. The same thing in business. People go into business and they fail at a business. So I'll never do that again. Everything is a lesson. So if you say I either learn or I win, right? And so
Right.
anything that we consider to be a failure, to consider to be a negative experience, look for the lesson in it, right? Look for the
Exactly.
lesson and reflect on the lesson in it, as opposed to take it as a negative, and be open. And at the same time, you have to always be open to new possibilities and open to the positivity of good things are going to happen to me, and you expect the good, and you plant a vision
Right.
for them. So there's a side of letting go, but there's also a side of attracting what you want, what
Absolutely.
your mission. And then you raised a great word, is purpose, right? And
Hmm.
that's another thing
Hmm.
of finding your purpose. What are you meant to do? So
Yes.
as opposed to we're just out here chasing money in a
Hmm.
capitalistic society. I mean, well, you know what? Let's take money off the table in a couple of ways right now. The first thing is
Okay.
everything makes money. Everything. Any
Hmm.
item you point to in your room, anything that you can think of makes money if done correctly, if scaled correctly. And
Uh-huh.
the second thing is we could go and we could name 10 things right now that are more important than money. And when you really think
Hmm.
about that, everybody make a list and say, what is more important than money to you? And if you say, gosh, my health or my family or, my peace of mind, my relationship with God, when you think about it, you say, well, if money's not even in the top 10 and
Hmm.
everything makes money, let's stop worrying about the money and be the best version of yourself, find your purpose,
Hmm.
and it'll lead to that purpose will be of some sort of service to the world that makes money. The money
Right,
will
right. And you talk about that in where you talk about it's not the ultimate goal, but freedom is. Time. And time is a very much a part of that freedom. And so when you think about the decades where you've sustained this landmark family business, what have you learned about building wealth while honoring your time, creating freedom, protecting your peace in your relationships, and living by your values? Hey, Mama, I get it. I remember those early days of motherhood, feeling totally outnumbered and out of my depth with my twin boys. Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems for My Journey is the book I wish I'd had back then. In my mini motherhood memoir, I share the real, unfiltered moments, from overwhelm to breakthroughs. Along the way, I discovered 7 guideposts that helped me find my footing, and I think they'll do the same for you. And guess what? I'm giving the book away free. Just head to mothersworkthebook.com to grab yours. Just pay shipping and handling, and also get your hands on some wonderful bonuses. You don't have to do this alone. Let's walk this journey together. That's mothersworkthebook.com. Can't wait for you to read it.
Well, the first thing I say for all young people is saving and investing, right? No matter what
Mm-hmm.
job you have, no matter what your career field or your purpose is, I said what we haven't been taught as a culture is saving and investing. I said, so
Okay.
that saving and investing, that time value of money, that compound interest is what's going to make you rich. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or buy that time freedom, buy that money freedom for you. That's what's going to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really going to be your job per se, right? Your job's going to feed
Mm-hmm.
you or take care of your bills at whatever level your job is. But if you
Mm-hmm.
if you start young and dedicate it every paycheck, save a
Right.
percentage, save 10% at least, and put that in a stock market, a low index fund or something, and just let the time value of money, let your money make money for you. I say
Yes.
you will be you'll be very happy you did that and satisfied. So so that's the first lesson I give with money is no matter what you're doing, do that. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
the principle is at the end of the day when you're working, if you're not working for yourself first, right? You're really working for yourself, aren't you? You're not working for McDonald's or Ben's Chili Bowl or IBM. You're working for yourself. And so the principle there is pay yourself first. And
Mm-hmm.
that paying yourself first is that savings and investing component. It's not going and buying a
Mm-hmm.
new pair of shoes, right? Or spending money at the club. It's that saving and investing. That is your money for your freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paying yourself first.
And it's not too early to start with that, even with children, with, for families that give allowance or when they get money from their grandparents or for their birthday party or what have you, teaching them at that age that this much is for um, charity, this much is for saving, this much is for something you can save it there, but it can be something that you want to purchase right now, or you want to build up to purchase something for enjoyment. But to really kind of have those buckets, even when they're younger, to create that mindset of, as you said, building wealth by you know being able to live with that delayed gratification and saving some money for the future and way into the future to
Well,
create wealth.
when you show people instead of it's not about the when instead of when you really show them what really makes you happy, doing an analysis of what makes you happy, right, and really
Hmm.
understand that as opposed to just that things don't make you happy, right?
Right.
The new car, the new handbag, the night out at the club, those aren't the things that truly make you happy and fulfilled and satisfied, right? As so much as the other things. So when you really kind of you have to do that analysis because we're marketed to every day. We're targeted every day in the form of
Yes.
marketing, in the form of
Hmm.
marketing, right? And that marketing is to take your money. That's really
Hmm.
what it's for. It's to take your money and it's to distract you. And so
Right.
these marketing ideas are coming at you to say, hey, got to buy those Nikes, got to go to this show, got to watch this game, got to play this video game. And all these
Right.
things take away your time from your purpose and take away your resources from your purpose and your enjoyment.
Hmm.
So that's what they're doing. And so kind of recognizing the game that's being run on us makes you say, you know what, let me focus on myself and my family. Let me build myself up. Those things are never going away. Oh, there'll always be a new car, a new item, a new tennis shoe, a new something or other to have. I say, but people have
Right.
gotten so caught up in the commercial culture because we are marketed to so tremendously, and then we get caught up in this, impress the Joneses type of a culture. We're trying to
Hmm.
outdo each other. We're trying to impress each other instead of being,
Yeah.
about yourself. And I say this whole journey is about yourself and understanding yourself, going kind of deep within yourself and finding that inner peace, right? Finding that inner happiness, right? Of
Hmm.
simple things. And the simplest and most fulfilling things in life are generally free.
Right. And I think when you know yourself, like when you engage in these daily practices that you talk about in the book, then you know how to respond. Like, yes, you're being marketed to. Yes, you're receiving messages on social media from your friends or what have you. But when you have that internal constitution rooted in the daily practices, the daily
Yeah.
connection with yourself, then
Yes.
you're able
That's,
to
that's,
say no. You're able to
and, that,
say
and that's
no, or
raising,
not
that's
even
raising,
not or not now,
yeah,
right?
that's raising your awareness, raising your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness about yourself and keeping yourself in the right, we could call it frame of mind, but another word is state, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the energetic state that we are in? We're all built of energy. We're nothing but
Mm-hmm.
energy, and it's
Mm-hmm.
controlling yourself. This is why the body, mind, spirit connection is so important. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts, right? It's also your
Right.
body, right? Are you eating the
Right.
right foods? Are you staying in alignment? Are you doing some practices of breath work or yoga or anything to keep yourself in that peaceful, pleasant state? So it's about controlling your state physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? So that you're not
Mm-hmm.
just responding. I try to teach the young people, particularly, listen, things come at you in life. A guy could, pull a gun or a knife on you or something, and your response in that 30 seconds, he's either going to
Right.
get you 30 years in life, killed, or away from that situation. Learn
Mm-hmm.
to be very aware, learn to take a breath
Mm-hmm.
and think before you react. Don't be so
Yes.
reactionary, right? Be
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful and calm and at peace and say, hey, brother,
Right.
what's you may be able to get out of that situation, but I always laugh about my mom because my mom is such a people person. I say sometimes I
Right.
leave her in the car with the car running, or sometimes she's walking down the street as an old lady with her purse. And I say, if anybody were to try to approach mom in any negative fashion, I said they'd end up bringing her back and apologizing and crying. And I said, a few minutes with mom is like meeting, Mother Teresa or something. It's the most amazing
Right.
to see her interact with
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
when you're in that peaceful state, nobody
Mm-hmm.
else can get to you. It takes two to fight, right? It takes two people to make a fight. But
Sure.
even
for
with your
sure.
spouse, even with dealing with your spouse, when you think of
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the right state of mind and the right energy, you're able to look at someone else who's maybe they're fussing with you or fussing, and you realize that's not really about you.
Right.
That's something
Right.
that's going on within themselves. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not
Mm-hmm.
be happy with themselves. They may be struggling with their past or something. I said, so it's very
Right.
important to be able to do some of these physical, mental, spiritual things and keep your balance. Keep your
Yeah. Yeah.
alignment is a key word, right?
Right. Absolutely. Alignment with your purpose, which is I talk about a lot about that in parenting, and we've talked a lot about legacy, which I feel parenting itself is very much a part of the legacy because we're really number one. It starts in this generation. You're parenting today for the adult that you hope your child will become, and then your child having been parented a particular way, what they learned for good or for bad is going to be handed down to the next generation. So, parenting is very much a part of legacy. And I want to think about what parents can do to prepare their children to carry a legacy without being crushed by its weight. And I feel like you're a good person to talk about that because you were entrusted with your parents' treasured legacy. And so, talk about how you learn to honor that without feeling like confined by it.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great point. And I think that, for me, when I think of parenting, for me, I think of modeling, right? I said, because no
Yes.
matter what, even if you're not you're not directly talking to your child or giving them a lesson, you're always the model, and they're so observant. They're little
Yeah.
sponges, and they're watching everything that you do and every reaction that you have and every comment that you make. So they're watching how you deal with people. They're watching how you drive the car. They're paying attention. And so
Yes.
you're really just modeling. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and the best way to parent is to be the best model. And so, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not, you can't tell them about being at peace or happiness or fulfillment if you're not, right. You
Right.
have to model it first. And so, in living your best life, so that's one of the hardest things I tell to parents. I says, I need you to live your best life and be your best self as the model.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
enough to it's not sometimes what do we say as parents, do like I say, not like I do. Right?
Well,
You want to give the lesson instead of being the model. Hey, live your
exactly.
best.
They don't
Yeah.
realize that so much is as much as taught is also caught as well by what children are seeing.
So to that point about the legacy piece, I mean, again, you're the model. So if I'm showing my kids, hey, this is how you carry yourself with grace. This is how you interact with people. If I my opinions on, and we're all different, but hey, this is my opinion on what this chili bowl means to the community, and this is what I see a vision for. But there's also the part about everything will change. There are businesses that have been around 50 or 100 years that go down every day. And so there's
Right.
every change is a part of life. And so you're teaching them that, listen, you have to have your own vision as when I'm gone. You have to have a vision. You're going to have to respond to those times and those trends and those customers and what's going on at that time. Trust
Right.
yourself. Trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Trust your heart. I mean, this is some of our divine our talents are things like intuition. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
teaches you about your intuition, how to trust that. Nobody teaches you about your imagination, right? Nobody teaches things that we have within us that
Right.
if we're in tune with and we pay attention to. I say so when I
Mm-hmm.
when I teach them about when I talk about meditation or going within, I say,
Mm-hmm.
listen, the right answer will come to you if you do your research, and then trust yourself. I say, God will send you the right answer.
You
I
got to
said, you
be
have to listen.
still to
You have
listen.
you have to be still to listen and receive, and then obey, and not go
Right.
against it. So these are some simple things of how to live your life that will translate into how to make those business decisions or family decisions or any decision, and trust the process and trust. Go with that flow, but also be, then you teach them some of the safety things of being a little conservative or planning for a rainy day. That savings and
Sure.
investing will go a long way towards it. That
Mm-hmm.
diversification, right? We're now in grocery stores. We have some franchises and some licensing agreements. So there's diversification, and there's those these are other principles to learn. as well in the
Right.
business. Will help to protect them and them as well. Yeah.
Right. So when you think about writing Ascend, uh, who was it for? Like in terms of particularly the age, who do you think can really grasp the concept and really
Yeah.
run with it?
Well, that's a different question. So
Okay.
that's interesting, right? It's like who do I want to get it? Who do I want to get it? As
Okay,
opposed to
got it.
who is ready to get it. That might be two different questions, and so I struggle
I
with
like
that one.
that.
But I will
Okay,
say this.
okay.
I will say this. I got a lot of inspiration. So I had three young men killed from gun violence who worked at Ben's
Hmm.
Chili Bowl, right?
Hmm.
Ulysses Trey Glenn was 20 years old. Jamal
Hmm.
Walton, 25 years old. Tim Spicer, 25 years old. And I had a first cousin killed from gun violence, Robert Bundy. So when I look at, what is going on in our city and our culture, when I see all the young men who are, dying senselessly or going and being imprisoned, unnecessarily, et cetera, I say, how can I help? Right. I
Hmm.
happen to have a great dad. I happen to have great mentors and go to great schools. I said, if you're not told the principles of life, why should you know? If you had no
Right.
model teaching you, why should you know? So it's my job to go out here and model and to teach these young men of color.
Hmm.
That's what I consider to be my mission. So when
Okay.
I say that, I say it's bigger than me, right? It's going to take all of
Hmm.
us, and so it's really
Sure.
who's the book for. The book is not only for them, but it's for anybody who loves and supports them.
Okay.
So that's particular. So of course the mothers do, but particularly this is for the fathers, the uncles, the grandfathers, all the black men who have to help the younger black men. And so I look at it. I got a lot of inspiration from the Million Man March. That was
Hmm.
a that was a feeling. That was a day where everybody was together, a million black men
Hmm.
in Washington D.C. On reconciliation and forgiveness
Hmm.
and living
Hmm.
their best lives. And so that was I take that spirit and say the women are already not only are they doing a little better, but they also have a lot of responsibility. They're taking care of the girls and the boys. I said, so it's our job as black men, sort of like the way the march explained it, to come to step up and take our rightful place in helping them. If we don't, who is going to help save these younger men? And
Hmm.
so for me, the book was the principles of the book are apply to everyone. It's not a racist book. It's not a sexist book. The principles of the book
Right.
really apply to everyone. It's a humanity book. But I felt the need
Hmm.
to be intentional about writing it to and for Black men, in
Hmm.
just to show that intentionality to help start
Right.
that new movement.
Yes, I
So,
like
so,
that. And
for the ages for everybody, because it's going to take the older ones to make sure they're together, make sure you got your program right. So now you can go back and reach back and be a mentor to a younger person.
yes,
And that's why
I.
it's written very simply. It's written
Mhm.
as an easy read for all grade and education levels.
I agree. It really is. It is very easy to follow. So that's why I was kind of curious what your thought process was in terms of the way you set it up. Now, for the black man who wants to change but's feeling overwhelmed, isolated, and skeptical of motivational advice, that I'm sure you've encountered that. What would be one daily practice, just one, from a sin that could help him begin rebuilding trust in himself and his journey today?
Mm. Well, when you say one, it's so easy to rattle off four or five, right? So when you say one, I'm going to say live every day like it's your birthday.
I like
It's
that.
one.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because, if you take a typical day of your week and you say, you know what, you wake up and say, you know what, I don't have any money in the bank, I don't have a job, whatever, all this negative to yourself, it's probably going to be a bad day. But almost
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a great day on their birthday. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
normal day. Nobody else cares. But you take your power and you say, you know what? It's my birthday. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to see my mom. I'm going to eat my favorite meal. I'm going to go to work. Whatever it is, you have a great day on your birthday. And the reason I say if I had to pick one and I said that, it's because you would then recognize that you have the power to live a great day every day.
Right.
It's you who made that day a great day. And you can do that
Yes.
every single day of your life by saying, every
Mm-hmm.
day is my birthday. Every day God gave me another chance to live and to try to be a better version of myself, to serve, to turn my life around, to do whatever. So if you just live every day like it's your birthday, you're gonna figure out what those things you did on your birthday, it made you successful that day. I bet your energy
Right.
was I bet your energy was different that day. I bet your gratitude was different that day. I bet the way you
Mm-hmm.
treated people was different that day, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There
no,
you
I love that. I love that idea. You know, because you hear some people say the cliche, live each day like it was your last. I love live each day like it's your birthday. And because we do have to remember, and I say this during my prayers every morning, you know, I'm thankful God last night was not my last night. So I've got to use this day. It was a gift. And, you know, he believes in me. Apparently, he believes I'm going to do something or I'm going to learn something that's going to help further his mission here on earth. And so I also want to just say to the audience, listen, I definitely put Ben on the spot by asking him to pick one, but there are some amazing gems in the book on practices that you can begin. Uh, so definitely take a look at Ascend. And Ben, why don't you tell us where we can find the book and also where we can follow you?
Yes, well, benalleymotivation.com or theascendbook.com are the ways to follow me and purchase a book. And the book's available on Amazon as well. And there's also, Carol, I don't know if you realize there's a song I wrote that correlates to all the principles in the book. And the song is called Thank You God, the
Okay.
Ascend book song by Ben Alley. And if you listen to that song, it's a very inspiring, kind of daily song to listen to, especially in the morning to start your day. Thank
Now,
you, God.
will readers learn how to access that song in the book, or how will that be?
By following the Ben Alley motivation, they'll see it there on my social media.
Uh,
Yep.
okay, wow, that's quite a bonus. Okay, and I will absolutely include those links in the show notes as well.
And
But
let me tell you a quick note about that song because it's relevant to when we talk about going inside, right? In that inner
hmm
self, what you said, quieting your mind. So a practice I do is meditation, and oftentimes I do
yes,
that first thing in the morning. And so when you realize you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and when you close your eyes, you're much more in line with your subconscious mind, and knowledge and ideas will come to you once you quiet your mind. And so for this song, I had put it on my mind that I wanted to write a song about the book. I wanted to write a song about the book. I literally woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning one morning, and that's a very special time, that early morning hours when you just jump up and pay attention to your thoughts. And I just
right.
wrote that song out. I just wrote that song out like from start to finish in 10, 15 minutes and just went back to
Wow.
bed. It just literally poured out of me. So I say,
Uh-huh.
God just gave me that song. I don't know what else to say about it. It was one of those things.
Well, I love it. That's like I said, that's quite a bonus. You get a book and you get a song. So, Ben, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and vulnerability and just the heart behind the Ascend book. And what really stands out to me is that Ascension isn't really just about achievement. You talked about that. It's about healing what's been hidden and just taking responsibility for what comes next, what you're going to do next, taking the next right step, and just becoming the kind of man whose life creates possibilities for others. And so, for the parents listening, this conversation also reminds us that legacy is about more than what we leave to our children in the way of material things. It's about what we build inside them, their faith, their confidence, their sense of identity, and their belief that they can rise beyond the limitations or any challenges that are placed before them. And so, to our listeners, I encourage you to continue this conversation in your own families. Ask the men and boys in your life what they need in order to heal, grow, and fully step into their purpose. And parenting is not about perfection. We're never going to get it all right. It's just about connection, intention, and giving our children the foundation they need to ascend. So until next time, remember that it is never too late to be the parent you want to be. Can't wait to talk to you again next time. We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting, to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers' and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.